good evening. Welcome to the second edition of the Gulf Coast Blitz. We'll take a look at all the news and scores and games and all kinds of stuff around the Gulf Coast, which takes you from Citrus County down through Tampa Bay and down into the Southwest Florida, Naples, Fort Myers area, Lee and Collier counties. I'm Marty Pallman, Joshua Wilson of Florida HS Football here as well, of course, as we bring you the second edition of the Gulf Coast Blitz coming up here in the next 30 minutes. We are going to have our Blitz Lines, our headline segment coming up. We'll have an interview with Bob Putnam of the Primetime Preps. He covers the Tampa Bay area and has for many years in the prep area. And then we'll have the Pick Six coming up as well. We'll pick 6 games in the Gulf Coast area. But Josh, a lot going on.
Yeah.
As we head into week 6, this is the halfway point literally of the season now. And again, today announced that they're the first ranking or the pairings came out for the playoffs. The first numbers coming out from the FHSA.
That's right. And that brings us into the Blitz Lines.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's where we start. We start with
Jesuit and Armwood. I mean, that was the big game last week, and I'll tell you what, a lot of people thought Armwood, rolling into this one, they're 3-0 coming into that game, and Jesuit, people were like, oh, okay, Jesuit 1-2, struggling, maybe potentially, and when it mattered most. Here's Jesuit put it together. A good game for them at 28-21 over the Hawks and handed Armwood their first loss of the season. That right there, it's for Matt Thompson's crew there for the Tigers. I think that right there, is a way to build confidence back into your team after having, losses to Treasure Coast and Columbus or here early in the season. Again, tough schedule. Now you're walking into district play with a big win over Armwood, and now at this point it's anything goes. You can go here, and you're coming in at this point 2-2. Hey, 8-2 is still possible here for Jesuit.
Yeah, and again, as a team, we thought Jesuit was really struggling, and they kind of were to start the season. But you're right, that win against Armwood may be something that can get this season turned around, and they have been playing much better football. Armwood was rolling along undefeated too, and they suffered their first loss of the 2023 season. And then today we see that in their region, Jesuit now up to a 1 seed and Armwood's a 3. So that changed some things around. But again, we still got 6 more weeks and a lot of district games to go before that. We really know what's going on. But yeah, big win for Jesuit. They needed that, and then they got it against Armwood.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's a big thing right there. It's just that, the way Armwood, has played, but Armwood, hey, okay, only 1 loss on the season. You know what? Now, Marty, what's going to happen now? Armwood could go win out the rest of the way here, but I mean that's what their goal should be, And of course, the Hawks, they've got a really good, strong football team this year.
Yeah, they do, and it's good to see them back. A couple of down years for them. I mean, it's hard for Armwood to be down, but the last couple of years have kind of been like that. But here they are back contending and really in the middle of that whole race in the Tampa Bay area or in the region as well.
No, you're absolutely right, and that's the big thing right there is that it's just a lot right there, for that. But then looking around across the coast here, down the coast, Venice picks up just literally stuff at River Ridge and send them back home with a shutout, and there's that one right there if you're looking at that. But Manatee and Port Charlotte played this past week, and Manatee showed Port Charlotte, hey, who's boss right now in that stretch of the region between in the South Suncoast area of the region. And Manatee, Jaquez Green is doing a heck of a job. 5-0. The Manatee's rolling. Manatee is a team that I feel like is one that you have got to that is in the mix for the 4S title this year.
Yeah, and it's funny because it used to be the mix for the state title every year, and of course, Joe Canan there many years as the head coach and retiring I think about 5 years ago now. And
well, it was before COVID, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was right before then. So and Manatee, take a little bit of a step back as they will sometimes when they're, when you replace a legendary coach like that. But they're right. Jaquez Green, former Gator, a coach also at Lincoln and Tallahassee with Yusuf Shakir. He followed Yusuf down to Manatee and now is the head coach. And Jaquez had a nice NFL career as well. Played with the Bucks among other teams. So yeah, it's good to see he's doing well. And that Manatee is back as well as they took care of Port Charlotte last week.
And of course, Clearwater Central Catholic went inland here, 38-20 win over Sebring there at Fireman's Field. So they kind of went inland, won at Sebring, and then came back. And then, an interesting game that I want to pull. There was a couple interesting games there in the Heartland region. One was Lakeland at Winter Haven, and Lakeland kind of struggled in my opinion there at Winter Haven when they really should have kind of had an easier time in my opinion. And then of course, how about this? Hardy, they're playing really well against Lakeland Christian. I'm telling you, Hardy, if they had not thrown an interception in the last minutes of the game, there's a chance that Hardy could have beaten Lakeland Christian. And I mean, Hardy is doing really well. And and this week, Clewiston is at Hardy. That's a district game right there. And actually, I think in that district right there, that's 2S14. I want to say that's the district. And I'll tell you this right now, if Hardy wins that game, they're winning that district.
Yeah, looks like it. I think that will be the case as well. So, yeah, that's as you mentioned, Hardy. We haven't talked a lot about them, but they are a team that has been really having a good run this year as well. So, yeah, we'll see what happens this week as well. With that is, we start district play for a lot of teams. Some teams have already played a district game, maybe, but yeah, this week it really starts getting cranked up with district games around the state of Florida.
No, absolutely, and of course, Southwest Florida. I mean, Golden Gate rolled over Gulf Coast this week.
Yeah, boy, they're on a roll, beating Naples. We talked to their coach last week, assistant coach, defensive coordinator, and they had just beat Naples on the road. They go and beat Gulf Coast. So Golden Gate right now is the number one seed in their region, as they should be. Naples is too. And then you have Gulf Coast there as well, who's different classification. But yeah, big wins back to back for that Golden Gate team, who we haven't really talked a lot about that program, but it seems like it's on the rise, at least here in 2023.
No, you're absolutely right, and everything and like that. And it's again, a lot of these games here, especially what we got games coming up here this week. Some of the games that we'll end up talking about in the pick six, but Lakeland at Lake Gibson, that's a huge district game coming up here this week. And I'll tell you this one right now. If Lakeland struggles like they have in some of these games here, I feel like Lake Gibson might have a shot. Lake Gibson, their only loss so far is to Lee County, Georgia, which is a very, very tough team now up in the smaller towns there up in the southern Georgia. That you got to right just north of Albany, to be honest with you. That right there is I just wonder about Lake Gibson. What does Lake Gibson feel like maybe they might have a chance at Lakeland here this year?
Lakeland's hard to figure out right now. As you said, they are a team that started, with a loss to Miami Norland, and they come back, win some games, and they struggle. Lost the second game. They struggled with Winter Haven last week, and yeah, Lake Gibson. That's a big rivalry game there in Polk County. I think Lake Gibson is a team we've seen before. That's made run to the state championship game. So yeah, that will be something that we'll be following with that game this week. Because yeah, I think you're right. I think Lake Gibson with a chance to win that game at home, real good chance against this Lakeland team.
No, you're absolutely right there, Marty, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens here. And of course, Marty's getting some baseball fix here while we're doing this.
Last week of the season, the playoff push.
Yeah,
we're football, high school football, and in baseball.
There you go, and everything. And of course, coming up here in a couple minutes, we're going to have Bob Putnam from Primetime Preps on, and Marty. I think when we're looking at the stretch here along I-75, I mean. I think the biggest question is a lot of people are wondering, is there going to be a team that's going to win a state championship? No, I mean, we were talking about Manatee. They're a potential here. Bishop Rose, another team, they're 5-0, and I think they have a really good, chance of making that run to a state championship game this year. But I think, people ask the big question is, when is Pinellas County ever going to win a state championship? And I think we'll kind of throw that to Bob Putnam here in a few minutes when we ask him. But I mean, that's because it's, Bob is born and raised in Pinellas County, and
all right, well,
they have not won a state championship. Teams have gone to the state championship game,
never won one. That's amazing.
No team.
I know Admiral Farragut's been there before.
CCC was there just last year,
yeah,
and
that's right. It's hard to believe that they've never won a state title in Pinellas County because it's such a big county. Ryan Hillsborough, of course, has won a bunch, but yeah, that's interesting. Somebody's got to break that streak, I think. So we'll see if maybe it's this year.
No, you're right, but
lots of good Clearwater teams too, not just CCC, but you're right. Clearwater High School is pretty good. Largo as well. They got some really good teams in that area.
No, absolutely. All right, we're gonna take a 1-minute water break. We've got Bob on. When the video's not ready yet, but he's on,
Okay.
so we got him ready to go. We're almost ready to go, but we're gonna take a 1-minute water break here, and then we're gonna bring Bob Putnam in for the interview here on the Blitz here and everything. So so he's trying to think he's gonna say a thing is make sure that everything gets logged in. So once we get Bob in, we'll bring him on here on the show. But we're going to take a water break, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Gulf Coast Blitz, here on FortHSFootball.com and the FortHSFootball.com social media platforms. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back here on the Gulf Coast Blitz, where Bob Putnam's run into some technical difficulties, so we're waiting on him to get in. But Marty, I mean, it's when we talk about different things going on here, and around the state, of course, you mentioned earlier, the first playoff rankings did come out, and I think some of the usual suspects are sitting there where they should be at.
Yeah, they are, and that's something that we'll look at, as we mentioned earlier. Berkeley Prep, they're number 1 seed, and right now, and again, these aren't official. There's a long way to go here in this season, but that was one team from Tampa. We talked about Berkeley Prep. We talked about Jesuit. Lakeland is the 3 seed, I believe, in their region right now. Was it the 4 or the 3? I think Bartow was number 1.
Yes.
And Bartow just knocked off Auburndale last week.
And Lakeland was sitting there 5.
Oh, they were the 5. I'm sorry, it was the 5. And there's still the question was asked earlier, if they win out and beat Bartow and win the district, will they move to a 1? I don't know if they'll move to a 1, but they will definitely move up. And Bartow right now is in the driver's seat, which is a little different, kind of a little backwards with Lakeland usually is at the top. And then as you go down through the Southwest Florida into that area, we mentioned Golden Gate, a team in Naples that's really playing well. And you go into Lee County as well. And interesting to see some of those teams in Fort Myers. They can get it as well, as we're still attempting to get Bob here.
I think we've got. I know he's probably got audio connected because it shows, but it's not showing the video. So that's the only thing. And it's I don't know if it's just having trouble with the video. If not, if Bob's having trouble with the video, we'll still get Bob on with audio. And let's go ahead and see if we've got Bob can hear us. Bob, I think we've got you. We've got the audio part. We just don't have the video part. But can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So we'll go ahead and just bring you in here, and we'll think that's okay if we don't have the video, but we'll go ahead and bring you in here, and we'll do that. So, Bob, appreciate you being able to join us here. I know it's a thing with the little technical difficulties, but we'll go ahead and get Bob here. But Bob, you've covered Tampa Bay and everything, in terms of the region for years. First at for many years there at the St. Pete Times, and later the Tampa Bay Times and everything. But Primetime Preps, this is your calling here. You started this there during COVID. Just kind of give people a little bit more background what Primetime Preps is and about everything that you're doing there, first of all.
Well, I'm basically trying to cover all kinds of sports, not just football, but volleyball and going on to winter and spring, and pretty much in Hernando, Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas. A lot of scoreboards and some rankings, some stats, the things like that I try to do that just have kind of been missing in the area for a while.
Oh, absolutely, and everything, and when in looking at it, but let's kind of shift into what's going on right now in terms of football around Tampa Bay, and I mean, we'll start with Hillsborough County first because that seems to be where the majority of the teams seem to come from when it comes deeper into the playoffs as of late. I mean, you've got your usual suspects there with Jesuit and Tampa Bay Tech. Armwood's made a strong push back to after the last couple of years of missing the playoffs, so. What is it, there in, Hillsborough County, you got the usual suspects, but then you've got Sumner who's sitting there 5-0. And that, I think, after the way they played, I believe it was Gaither, the way they played against Gaither, I think a lot of people finally took notice of what Sumner's doing.
Yeah, Sumner has a lot of star power. Greg Smith, the quarterback, very versatile. Has thrown for 13 touchdowns so far this year, can do a lot of things through the air and with his feet. They've got a terrific receiver in Tyler Williams, a great offensive line, and really solid defense. It's kind of all come together, and there's a little bit of motivation there because last year they had to forfeit quite a bit of games, and so I think there was just some motivation there to show that hey, we are for real. Even despite having to forfeit some of those games last year, we're here. We're ready to kind of show where we're at. And this has been a pretty successful program from the start. They had a winning season that first year. Made the playoffs. Right from the start, this has been a really strong success story.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a thing. And head coach Alonzo Ashwood has done a phenomenal job there. Especially when having to launch a program right in the middle of all of the COVID-19 pandemic, having to get that going, and especially building a program out and opening a new school. It's not always usually the easiest there in terms of that. But Armwood. Talk about Armwood's resurgence here, because I know losing to Jesuit, which we'll talk. We talked about that a little bit here at the start of the show. Is Jesuit getting a good quality win over Armwood, but Armwood being able to rebuild themselves back after especially missing the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they've had a ton of motivation. The two kind of subpar years, at least to their standard. The key for them was great offensive line, being able to run the ball. With a great running back in Gerard Pringle. It's a new quarterback. I think that's kind of helped in that it's a sophomore, Rise Brush, but he's been very careful with the football as well. I believe it's only one interception on the year so far. So being able to play mistake-free football on offense and doing, getting back to that form of what they've always been, kind of their trademark has always been defense, and getting back to that as well. Obviously a hiccup with Jesuit this past week. I think with Jesuit in that win, the big thing in that is that they were able to run the ball. They weren't able to do that in those first three games. They only had 84 yards rushing combined as a team in those first three games. Last week against Armwood, 111.
Yeah, Bob, we were just talking about this before. Josh and I were Pinellas County in the championship drought, which it's hard for me to believe, state championship drought that Pinellas County has. But as you look at Pinellas County football, we know Clearwater Central last year played for the state title. Who else do you see in Pinellas County that may have a chance this year to make a run in the postseason?
Well, really, everything's kind of set up, by your region, really. And so this game that CCC is going to have Friday night against Carrollwood Day is going to be huge in that regard, because what you don't want is to have the fourth seed in the region and have to play Chaminade in the semifinals and not get a chance to at least go to that title game. And I think that game is going to play a big role in that, determining where that seed might be. You obviously want to be like the second or third seed in that, so you can avoid Chaminade in the semifinals. For CCC, plenty of motivation to get back to that game, to try to have another shot at Chaminade. Obviously this is going to be the first step against Carrollwood. The big thing is running the football. In the two victories against Carrollwood Day last year, first one, CCC was able to run for 331 yards. Carrollwood Day 71. Rematch in the playoffs, CCC was able to run for 204. Carrollwood 93. I believe it's going to probably be the same game plan, same mindset. The big key for Carrollwood Day is can you stop the run? As far as like any other team in Pinellas, Largo, just because of the region, I think they have a chance to possibly play Jesuit again in the region final. A lot more confidence, I think, this year because of they were able to hang with them at least for a little while in that game last year. Very good defense led by Darius Hayes, and offense is pretty strong too with Jeremy Thomas at quarterback and Malachi Peterson at running back.
No, absolutely. And Bob, one of the other areas that you cover is the North Suncoast. And, there's a quarterback out there at Wiregrass Ranch, I believe Luke Knight. I think it's a couple of people, it sounds familiar, but Wiregrass Ranch has been, they've shown some signs and some flexibility on what they have been able to do. But, outside of that, Wiregrass Ranch, Mitchell's kind of seems to be, taking a little bit of a backwards turn here during the, so far this season. And then, of course, you've got, Springstead up there that, up there in Hernando County that seems to be, maybe potentially, they're in the mix for their district. So what's going on along the North Suncoast that, what we should really kind of be following here at this particular point here going into week 6?
Well, yeah, obviously Luke Knight is a big story. 15 touchdown passes, 1 interception, like over 1,200 yards, I think, just threw for 8. Really, Pasco County has been, before you think of it like, kind of like 3 yards cloud of dust, but now it's become like an air show, there. He's thrown for 8 touchdowns. Last week, Zephyr Hills Christian, Parker Stincorn threw for 7 touchdowns. And a couple of other quarterbacks threw for 7 or 8 touchdowns last year in either the playoffs or the regular season. So the passing game has really kind of taken off, in Pasco County. Zephyr Hills is another great team. They've played Lake Wales a couple of times, twice last year, this year in the season opener. Hasn't gone their way, but, they've hoping obviously to see them again, at some point and maybe get a shot at taking the next step and getting to the state semifinals. Springstead, they actually play Wiregrass Ranch. Is going to be obviously a great game. Springstead, they had to replace their quarterback from last year, so that was a big key. But they're relying a lot on the ground game. Connor Macasio running the ball and done pretty well, so far this year.
No, absolutely, and of course that sounds like there's a lot going on there and everything. But at the end of the day, when we look at everything that's happening here, I think the biggest thing is that a lot of people were like just mesmerized by the whole with the playoff rankings, and I think we have to remind people, that came out the day by the FHA, those playoff rankings, that this is not the final result. I mean, yes, this would be what if the season ended today. So, what are your initial thoughts on what we saw today? Because I know that there's always going to be something wonky when it comes to the playoff rankings when they first come out.
Well, one thing, I mean, people will see, Lakewood, in there as far as the ranking, but they played a great schedule. And one key thing to note, with Lakewood, even though they struggled in these first couple of games, the offense, they graduated quite a bit from last year. Calandre is obviously playing at Virginia as a freshman. Their quarterback lost both running backs from last year, receiving core as well. They picked up a great win against Miami Edison, last week, so kind of got back on track. In their district, they're the only team with a win in their district right now. Gibbs is winless, Bogosiega is winless. They play Bogey this week. They play Gibbs soon. They're probably going to win, at least they got a very good shot at winning the district title again. And those games are going to come in handy, once you get to the playoffs.
No, absolutely. And that's a big thing right there is when they get in the playoffs and the big wins. That's the most important thing and everything and all that. And Marty, you got anything else to ask Bob?
No. Thanks. I appreciate you coming on, Bob.
No, Bob, I appreciate it. And we appreciate your time here. I know you're a busy man as well as like we are. And we definitely appreciate you being able to join us a few minutes and talk Tampa Bay area football.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. And you can find Bob Putnam at primetinespreps.com and then, of course, at Big Game Bobby on Twitter or the platform they call X now. So right. And everything. But appreciate Bob being able to join us here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here. And, of course, and it is coming up on that time here, Marty.
Yeah, before we go, and we appreciate Bob from Bob Putnam being with us with the interview. But before we go, it's time for Yep, there it is, the music, the pick six games from the Gulf Coast area that Josh and I will pick. We'll do this every week at the end of the show, and we're going to start with a game we talked about earlier in Polk County, Lakeland and Lake Gibson.
Yes, Lakeland and Lake Gibson here, Marty, and Lakeland struggled a little bit with Winter Haven last week, which I was kind of stunned with. I believe it was like 28-12 was the final score. I don't have it right in front of me, but kind of like everybody was like wondering what was going on, but I hear that there was a lot of penalties, so that might play part of it. But I'm wondering here in this situation, this game, this is a district game. This is a big district game. I think it's whoever wins this game is winning the district, in my opinion, because the other two opponents in your district are George Jenkins and Kathleen. And George Jenkins, although despite George Jenkins being 3-0. They haven't played the schedule that either Lakeland or Lake Gibson have played. So in my mind, Lakeland or Lake Gibson, whoever wins this game is winning the district. This is at Lake Gibson. Lakeland has been struggling, but you know what? I still, in my mind, part of me rides with Lakeland here in this game, and I want to take the Dreadnoughts, but part of me wants to take the Braves because it's at home and they look a lot better than, they have played some good games this year, but I'm going to stick with the Dreadnoughts here in this one, Marty.
The Braves, yeah, the Atlanta. No, I'm watching the Atlanta Braves. Sorry, right now, the Lake Gibson Braves. Yeah, as much as I want to pick Lake Gibson here, I agree with you. I think Lakeland's going to find a way to win this game. I know it's a big rivalry game; it's on the road, but I think Lakeland's going to, figure out a way to, get this one done, and Lakeland will win on the road.
Yeah, and please plug that Zephyr Hills water bottle up while you're at it, because Zephyr Hills. Sponsor on the FloorHSFootball.com scoreboards, and also at Zephyr Hills Team of the Week, high school football team of the week. So, and everything, you can find all that stuff, the links to all that on FloorHSFootball.com, by the way, on that one. So, Marty is going to go with Lakeland.
Yes, I'm taking the Dreadnoughts.
All right. Our next game, Bob, we alluded to this with Bob Putnam here, and that is Carrollwood Day at Clearwater Central Catholic. I mean, woo, big district game here. This is one that you cannot go wrong with. Carrollwood Day, both in CCC, both have played some tough scheduled games already this year. But I mean, this one's, CCC. You can throw almost any team at them and they're going to win. You can almost throw any team at them, and I say almost any team, probably the exception of Shaman and Madonna. That's probably with every team in the state of Florida. You throw Shaman and Madonna at them, and it's going to be hard.
Right.
But I like CCC at home. I think this is going to be a good matchup, but I take CCC in a close one here.
Yeah, I like CCC as well, and I think part of it is they're just a really good team. I mean, they're at home. Carrollwood Day, yeah, as you said, they're very good as well, but I think that Clearwater Central is going to find a way to win this game and win at home as well. So I agree with you.
No, absolutely. All right, on to our number 3 game here on the pick 6, our third game here. Calvary Christian Clearwater at Berkeley Prep here, another district opener. And Berkeley Prep is rolling, looking really good, but Calvary Christian has struggled a little bit, but has played a tough schedule. So, I mean, here's the thing. Do I go with the Warriors or do I go with the Buccaneers? So which one do I take? And I think I go with Berkeley Prep, domicile at home. I mean, this is where I go with. I think it's just going to be that kind of a game. It's going to be one of these ones. Home field advantage plays a role here in some of these games, and this is going to be one of them.
Well, it's Tampa Bay, so you got to go with the Bucks, right? In that case, but
yeah.
But I'm with you. Berkeley Prep at home. I think that this will be a heck of a game. I agree, but I think you're right. A home team, Berkeley Prep is playing well. They're a number 1 seed right now in their region, and they get it done and win as well.
Absolutely. All right. So either me and Marty so far are going to be 3-0 on these picks, or we're going to be 0-3.
That's right.
All right. Our next game we talked about with Bob as well is Wiregrass Ranch at Springstead. Another big district game here. Luke Knight obviously having some huge numbers, and maybe he'll put up a night of a night against Springstead. We don't know, but you know what? Springstead won the district last year, and but this one's going to be tough for me to in this one. Yeah, Springstead did win the district last year because they did beat Mitchell, but you know what? Wiregrass Ranch looks really good. Mark Cantor's got a really good program going there, and for this year's team, and I'm going with Wiregrass here, Marty.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'd like to take Springstead here because they're at home, but they won the district, but I don't think they play quite the schedule Wiregrass does. I'm with you. So again, I think I'm going to go with Wiregrass Ranch.
All right, here we go. Another one that's a big district game here, and this one was they saw each other twice last year, first in the district and then then the second time in the playoffs. And this is Sarasota Riverview, and they actually look much better than they were last year at this particular point. They have been winning some games. One of their only losses was to Buchholz early in the season, a 5-0 Buchholz. So their definitely strength of schedule definitely is up there, and I'll tell you what, but Venice, Powell Davis Stadium, this is not an easy one to go there and play. And for me, I'm rolling with the Indians.
Yeah, Venice struggled a little bit to start the year, but then again, they played some really good competition. And, I think they are pretty tough at home. We know that about Venice. It is a good story. Sarasota Riverview is playing well. They lost 53-31 in that game to Buchholz, by the way. But, yeah, I'm with you. And speaking of that's where Buchholz's season ended a year ago was at Venice in the state semifinals, 42-35. I'll take Venice as well to get the win at home.
No, absolutely. And our final game in the pick six, Lakeland Christian and Evangelical Christian. This will matter big time in the FHA Power Rankings, especially in Class 1S, given the fact that there's only 23 teams in that one. And then the music ran out, and I'm starting it. So there you go.
There's the band, yeah.
Yes, so there's the band indeed. And but here you go. This is I think Lakeland Christian. They're coming off a close win. Hardy. That's really it's a big one right there. I mean, Evangelical Christian. They've played some tough games as well. They played Cardinal Mooney. That was a tough one right there for them. But Lakeland Christian. They've played the tough schedule. They have won some close games. I mean, Zephyr Hills Christian, and then of course now against last week against Hardy. This is tough here, but part of me says Lakeland Christian on the road. And that's where I'm going with it.
6 for 6.
Oh,
I agree.
Well, we're either going. Okay, so here we are. We're either going to be.
Well, we could be 3-3. We
could
be
that too.
6-0. We could be 0-6. You're right. That's true. But I'm with you. I think Lakeland Christian is good enough to win this game on the road. It's a trip to Fort Myers, but hey, Lakeland Christian right now, the number 1 seed again in their region. I think they have a good shot to win.
No, you're absolutely right there, Marty, and that will bring it to an end here on the pick six there, right there. And you got any final thoughts here for this one?
No, there's just a lot going on in the Gulf Coast. We got a lot of good games this week as district play gets underway. And, it was good to have Bob Putnam. We had Larry Bluestein on in the South Florida Blitz. We have Bob Putnam on here for Gulf Coast, probably the two most experienced guys maybe in Florida.
And then Michael Oshio in Central Florida.
As well. And so, we a lot coming up, and we look forward to talking about what happened this week next Tuesday night at 9:00.
No, you're absolutely right. There will be a lot right there, and we'll have a lot more. And of course, we'll get some more great guests on here as we go through. There's a lot of great people to talk to around the Sunshine State, and we'll bring them on here. And of course, appreciate it, Emery, for the comment. He says, go Wildcats in reference to the Hardy Wildcats. And, of course, he appreciated it here. Thanks. Enjoyed the show, Josh and Marty. And we appreciate that, Emery. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be back here next week here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FloydHSFootball.com and the FloydHSFootball.com social media channels. We'll see you next week. And stay tuned for the North Florida Blitz coming up here at 9:45 Eastern.